Welcome. This is a Pathway Church. This is the addiction podcast. And I want to start off by saying that addiction is more than just a problem. Addiction is more than just a lifestyle. It's bigger than any human can handle. Um, Unless you've experienced it and have been there, it's very hard and difficult to understand. It's like the spirit and the soul are fighting. Um, I want to stress that you don't wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to be a heroin addict. Hey, I'm going to be a cocaine addict. Hey, I'm going to be an alcoholic. It's the little by little things. And before long, it's got you. I can remember my friend, she had a car accident, and they give her, of course, broke her foot. They give her a bottle of pain medicine. When it was over, she was like, I need more. Just one bottle. A little background. I broke my back when I was 12 years old in like 6 places, playing football in the backyard. Wasn't uncommon, after that pain medicine, then you want more and more and more and more. There comes a certain point in your addiction to where you'll do anything to get it. It doesn't matter. I started using meth, man, I don't know, late 90s. And people, like, to understand, if you've never been through addiction, is the best way to describe it is hold your breath. Hold your breath. I'm not talking about for a few seconds. Hold it 15, 20 minutes. You can't. It's like you got to have it. Your body is going to do what it's got to do to get it. And people, especially the church, needs to quit condemning and start helping. Well, how do you help them? Well, number one, quit pointing out their problems. They're well aware of it. There was a point in my life, for years and years and years, I would spend over $1,000 a week, I get ever how many I got. Usually it's 300 to 500. Well, then I would spend another $1,000 every Friday. That's what I worked for, to supply my needs. And it's just not pain medicine, it's just not meth. Addiction goes beyond drugs. Addiction goes to many different things. There's many times the Holy Spirit will quicken me if I'm sitting there at the house and I'm kicked back after work, and I got my phone, and he'll say, hey, stop studying. Okay, that's addiction. Addiction is anything that controls you. And again, everybody always talks about, the drug part of it, and that's probably why we're here today more so. But there's a point in life, and I'll tell this story right quick, where if I get 1,000 pain pills on Friday, Wednesday I'm already out. I'm looking, that ain't including the meth problem. That was on the side. And I say this in all, I don't know the word I'm looking for. We used to make it, and it wasn't, we always had it.
Yeah.
But it started, okay, my brother was at a party, and a whole bunch of people there. Well, he went to do his thing, cut it out there on the table. Well, some fell on the ground, and it looked like bees on honey, just the people just down there going through the carpet. And I'm thinking, wow, Of course, I was too good to look at myself, because I was there, of course. But how did you come to know? I mean, like, how did you know that you had a problem?
I feel like the first time I ever knew that I had a problem was whenever I was already really, really bad. At that point, I was already addicted to meth and fentanyl at the same time. And my best friend had been in rehab for like 6 months. And she left one day because she found out how bad I was. And she said that she was coming to save me or whatever. And she met me at this dope house that I was at. And she took me out on the back porch. And I was doing my thing or whatever. And she was just talking to me. And as she was talking to me, I just sat my stuff down and I just started crying. And she was telling me, like, there's such a better life out there. Like, you know, you can do so much better than what you're doing. And you know that you're better than what you're doing. But at that time, I didn't know. I mean, I really didn't know. I was so blinded by all of the, I don't know how to put it, blinded by all the drugs and the addictions and the veils over my head, you know. I was just blind to all of it until that day she told me about it. And like, she was never a friend. Like, she was always the friend that would come to me and tell me to like pray for her. And like, cause I grew up in church, you know, but she would like tell me she was going through something. She wanted me to pray with her or stuff like that. And then for her to tell me that, and like her to come to me about God, it just kind of struck me wrong, you know, like, well, in a good way, not wrong, but like in a good way, you know. And that's the first time I ever even was like, oh man, I really do have a problem, you know. And then, which I mean, she ended up relapsing with me that day. And
Well, let me ask you this: when you realize that and you look ahead in life, know it in the back of your mind, you know I'm either going to quit or I'm going to die. One of the two. There is no medium there, and you're scared to know how you're going to quit because you can't. You know, it's going to take something miraculous to get you. And I know you've been there. It's like just praying that you wake up the next day.
mm-hmm.
You know, just to see that next morning means more to people like that than any amount of money. Just you've got to survive.
Right. Yeah, I remember praying sometimes like that I wouldn't wake up the next morning. Like I was so far down, I would just pray that I just wouldn't wake up. And then I'd wake up and be like, thank you for waking me up, you know? Because like I didn't know what I was saying at the time, but sometimes I'd just pray that, Lord, I don't want to do this anymore. But it was my fault that I was in that position. It was just so deep in it that I couldn't pull myself out of it.
And for people which now, you know, we're both saved, full of the Holy Ghost, you know, we look back on that. And when I see the church condemning people, that, you know, that's major. And us as a church, we need to love. You know, you and I know what it's like to be on the opposite side. And like you say, people, when you're in that state of mind, you say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not going to listen.
Right. Yeah. I know many times my family, they go to church and stuff, and many a times my family would come to me and try to talk to me, and like there would be days that I would just completely ignore everything that they were saying, and like later that night I would start feeling the guilt from it. But like during that time I was just like, I want to get home. Like just all this, like all of it coming down, like all the guilt, I guess at the time, like from all of it, from the guilt from what I was doing and them trying to lead me in the right direction just made me want to get high.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, to and I'm not going to say solve the problem, but wherever the presence of God is at, that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
That there is. I'm going to say this, and if you believe differently, that's fine. I don't believe in rehab.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have it up here before you go. You know, you can tell me what I'm doing wrong all day long, but until you get it up here, you know, I didn't care.
Right.
I mean, the addiction is so strong that yeah, okay, and you're gonna go right back. It takes a supernatural. And people that, if they are eating, they're few that could quit on their own.
Yeah.
I don't possibly see how.
Mm-hmm. I know many people, because I tried to go to rehab, just like many people that I know. We all tried to go to rehab, but everybody that I know that's went to rehab has relapsed.
Yeah.
Like until you find God, there's really no stopping it, because rehab will teach you the steps that you need to know, like the 12 steps or whatever. I believe in one step, and that's Jesus, that's God. But rehab will teach you the 12 steps where, like, you know, you try to teach you how to live in society while being sober. But also, that's just while you're in the rehab. Once you get back out into the world, all those things aren't there, you know. And I just feel like in rehab, they'll tell you, pray to or go to your higher power. And whenever I was in there, I was always like, God's my higher power.
That's right.
I'm just letting y'all know, like, that's who I pray to. But I only went for 2 weeks, though. I ain't talking like I went for like a year. I left within 2 weeks. But whenever I got saved, I was in a dope house. I was literally in the dope house. Like, I was living there, and God met me there. He met, like, it was the craziest thing I've ever felt in my life, I tell you, for real. There was so much going on around me, and, like, I went to Double Springs to do some stuff, and then whenever I headed back, and I was supposed to just go there, get in somebody else's car, and then go back to Double Springs. Well, whenever I got there, something was wrong. I said, "What's wrong?" And they was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Something is not right." And like, I was literally tripping. Like, I thought I was tripping bad. And so there was like 30 people there whenever I got back. And whenever I left, there was only like 5 or 6 people there. And then I got back, and I kid you, no longer than 20 minutes it took me to go to town. And whenever I came back, there were so many people there, and I was like, oh, God, I'm fixing to die. Like, something is not right. I do not feel right in my spirit. And I called my dad, and there have been many times where I had called my dad and or my mom. And there's a lot of times I'd call my mom, backtrack a little bit. There's a lot of times I'd call my mom, and I would just, like, I would call her, and I'd put my phone in my pocket because I didn't feel like something was right, you know. Which, I mean, I know now that was just conviction. That was God, you know, talking to me at those times. But I would just put my phone in my pocket and just so my mom could hear, just in case something went wrong or something happened to me or something. That's what I always felt like. And this time I called my mom, and then I looked down at my phone like after like 20 minutes of being there, because I was questioning everybody. I was like, what is going on here? Like, something is not right. What's going on? You know, that's just what I kept saying. I remember I just kept saying, what is going on? And everybody just kept telling me that I probably got laced or something. I was like, no, I knew that I had done, like, I had got high that morning, but I was like, I know that this is not what this is. Something is not right. And then I looked down at my phone, and my phone has hung up. So I was like, oh, I'm calling my daddy's. My mom was off the phone. So I called my dad, and he told me, like, he was at my nephew's football game. And I was like, Dad, I need you to come get me right now. What? Something's not right.
He knew where the places was.
Yeah. He knew exactly where it was, because like I said, my parents, they had cut me off to a point where, but like, they always checked every single day. I never went a day without them checking me, even whenever I was really, really, really bad. But my voice is shaky, you hear it. But I remember I called him, and I was like, Dad, like, please come get me. Something's not right. And he was like, I can't. I'm at Mom's ball game. I can't. And I was like, Dad, please just come get me. Like, I know something is not right. And he was like, baby, you do this all the time. I can come after the game. And I was like, Dad, it cannot wait. I remember saying, like, if you come right now, I promise I will never go back.
In your spirit, you knew something different.
I knew something wasn't right. And I was like, if you just please come get me. I remember begging him. I was like, Dad, please. But they were already to the point where, like, you know, they heard it all the time. They heard me call all the time. And, like, it was the same story over and over. And they'd come get me, and I'd go to their house for a day or two, sleep, and then I'd leave again. It was just back and forth a lot. And I remember he was like, well, if I come get you, then you're not going back again. And I was like, Dad, I swear. Like, I put it on everything I love. If you'll just come get me, I will never go back. And I remember I was on the phone. He stayed on the phone with me the whole time. He said he was going like 100 to get there. But I remember it felt like it took so long. It was only like 12 minutes up the road. And I remember it felt like it took like an hour for him to get there. And I was so scared. Like, it's the most scary feeling I've ever felt in my life. I didn't know what it was, but it was just God talking to me. That was God meeting me right there. And I remember him and my little brother got there, and actually, backtrack a little bit. I remember being on the phone with him, and it was taking forever. And I walked outside and looked outside, and there was a vehicle leaving, and I thought it was my dad pulling up and leaving. So I remember screaming at that vehicle, and I was like, "No, please don't! Like, please don't leave me." So I thought it was my dad, and he was like, "What do you mean? I'm almost there." And I was like, "So that's not you?" And he was like, "No, it's not me. I'm on my way." And he got there not long after that, and I remember I jumped in the front seat with my little brother, and I sat in the floorboard between his legs, and I was just talking to my dad and, like, talking to him, both of them. I'm shaking. But, I remember just talking to him, and I was like, well, actually, I wasn't really just talking. I was screaming, like I was not okay at that point. And but I remember I asked him to pray for me or pray with me because, like, I didn't know it until about 10 minutes later, but I had two demons inside of me, and I didn't know that, and it makes sense now. But I remember I was like, Dad, I don't even know how to pray anymore. I need you to pray for me because I'm not okay. I need y'all to pray for me. And I remember they started praying, and it was like I was sitting in like it's like I was right here, but I was like sitting in the back seat with like hands over my mouth, and it wasn't me talking. And I remember whenever he was praying for me, I was like, I don't want to hear this. Like, well, it wasn't me, but like it was like I don't want to hear this. And I remember Daniel. He told me he was so scared. He said he had never seen anything like that. And Dad ended up like I remember it was the first time that I remember hearing God's voice twice, like distinctively. Like he talks to me all the time now, but like I could literally hear his voice, and it was through my dad. He talked to me through my dad that day, and I remember him saying, like, Dad looked straight at me, but I knew it wasn't my dad. Like it was God talking through my dad, and he was like, if you truly believe that you're gonna be saved, you can never go back. And I was like, okay, okay, I swear. And I remember giving my life to the Lord in the front seat of that floorboard at the dope house in the truck there. But it took a long time. I ran from God for a really long time because I started smoking weed whenever I was like 12 and drinking when I was 11, and I was in and out of church, and then whenever I was like 18, I quit going to church altogether, and I would just come like periodically. But at like 18, I started doing like Xanaxes and pain pills, and I was dating women and stuff like that, and like just all the things that I knew I shouldn't have been doing, but it made me feel okay at that time.
Well, you brought out a good point. The devil, I mean, he's here. The Bible tells us he's nothing but kill, steal, and destroy. There is no good. And you talked about the fentanyl a while ago. That's I got out of it just before that scare started. So I don't know what it's like to get something that's possibly laced. I thank God for that. Now I will say, uh, after all the pain medicine, I went back to the doctor, of course, wanting more and more and more. Because one, whenever enough, two's not enough, three's not enough, four's not enough. So he prescribed me fentanyl patches. Well, I'm laying there in bed one day, and I thought, I don't know. I've never had a headache that bad. And I'll say, something inside of me thinks I'm dying because I don't know. I woke up and it was gone. I told God, you got to kill me. Either kill me or if I said do it myself. I nodded out, passed out, was asleep, whatever you want to call it. And I woke up, it was gone. But that's the thing. You don't have chances on that. I used to, when I first got saved, I used to think, smoking weed. I thought, well, that ain't bad really, because you use it for medicinal, whatever. No, anything that alters your state of mind ain't good for you. Facts.
Yeah.
Quit trying to make excuses for this and that. But I want to say, bottom line is, if anybody's hearing this and you're suffering with addiction, you got no way out, come see us at Pathway. We'll pray for you. This is a church. I've been to a few churches in my life. I've never been to a church quite like this one. This built, formed, based on prayer and love. I look out in the congregation. We're not a thousand people congregation, but what we are, we're love. We believe in prayer. We believe in deliverance. And believe me, you have done nothing that God can't forgive, can't heal. I'm telling you, I'm a walking miracle. The people that does know me, and one day on this podcast, I'll give my testimony, but, I've played the big music out there. I've lived on the streets. I know what it's like. And nothing, we was just talking about it earlier, nothing can compare to what I've got now. Nothing. I've done it all. You know, and if there's a drug out there that I haven't done, I'm not curious. I'm just saying that, you know what, I've tried it all. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing can compare with God, the presence of God. I'm telling you, it'll change you. Mm-hmm. You know, God says we are a new creation. So if you're stuck and you don't know what direction to go, come to Pathway here at Haleable. Let us pray for you and show you the love that God has for you. So,
yeah, I agree with that. This church for sure. And anybody that's ever asked me about a church, I always recommend this church, because anytime that I was out in the world or doing this or doing that, like, this is the only church that I've ever been to where I never felt one shade of judgment. Yeah. Like, not one. Even when I was with women or whenever I was on drugs really bad, they would welcome me with open arms. Never a look from anybody. No shade of judgment in any type of way. I don't know. This is the only church I've ever been to that really just goes off what that Bible says and like don't twist it. And I'm not just tooting our horn, but I am a little bit. Saying like
truth's the truth.
I don't know. I love it here for sure. I don't know where to go to.
You know, I heard one of my favorite evangelists talking about this, and he said, you know, when you do something like that, that chemical, that drug that you're doing so used to, it releases a chemical in your brain, and that's what you're always after. Mm-hmm. You know, and like I say, nothing can get rid of that except the presence of God.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the first time, I remember whenever I started doing meth, it was, I did it on my own, you know, but as I had been doing cocaine from the time I was like 19. I tried it at 19, and I had done it until I was about 25. And I had to quit doing it because they told me I needed to have surgery on my nose. I still can't hardly breathe on my nose, but they told me, because I had done so much of it, that like I destroyed everything up in here. Like you have a deviated septum. I don't know if some of y'all probably know what that is if you're dealing with addiction, but like it's just a hole that's burned all the way through. Like the wind kind of just goes all the way through. You don't have two nostrils. It's just one coming out, you know. But I have 3 of those up through here. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So I had to stop doing cocaine, and then about 2 weeks after that, I had only been sober from it for about 2 weeks, and these people that I was hanging out with and was around, they were doing meth on my back porch, and I was like, hey, is that anything like cocaine? And they was like, no, kind of, but no. And I was like, well, let me try it, because I really loved cocaine when I was on it really bad. So, and to be without it for 2 weeks after being on it for years, I was just like, okay, maybe this will do it. And I could smoke it instead of putting it up my nose. You know? So I got introduced to that, and I got on it. I was just doing it like maybe every other day whenever they would be over there, you know. But then I started hanging out with my best friend from, like, since we were kids. Her and the person that she was with were really bad on fentanyl at that time. And they asked me, they said, like, we know you wouldn't come around us before, but like now that you're on harder stuff, like, could you come help us get off of this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll come over there. Because like I wouldn't go over there at all because I didn't want to be around them. But then once I started doing the harder stuff, I was like, whatever, it's just a drug, you know. That's how I thought about it at the time. So I went over there and I was trying to help them get sober from that. And I remember, like, I started doing, I call it dope instead of meth. That's what I got rid of. That's what I call it. But I started doing that, like, often, like, all the time, staying up for days and days and days. Just because it was an excuse. But, like, they were all dying on me, like, all the time. Like, I've seen so many people dying from me, like overdoses, and some people didn't make it. A lot of them did, thank God, but some of them didn't make it. And so they would all like hit the fentanyl and then pass out. And most of them would OD as soon as they hit it, because like it hits you really fast. It's really, really fast. And so I started doing more dope to stay awake, to make sure, because they wouldn't stay awake to check on each other, you know, if they were just doing it. So I remember that's whenever I got really bad on dope, because I would stay up for days just to make sure, because like they would wake up from like being asleep for 4 hours, hit it and pass back out. Like they wouldn't check on each other, like to be awake to make sure each other was going to be okay. And I remember it scared me so bad that I got really bad on dope to stay awake for that long. It was my excuse, but then I was just on it. And then I remember, I've done CPR and like, I've had a Narcan on a bunch of people, but I've done CPR on like 18 people. And all of my closest friends, I've done CPR on every one of them. I remember, and two of the two best friends or my best friend and then the person she was with, I remember they both were fixing to go to rehab. And right before they went to rehab, we started staying at my house and went away from their apartment, started staying at my house. And I remember they both passed out on their bed and their fentanyl was just laying beside the bed. And I was like, I wonder what it's like, you know what I'm saying? So I remember I got the tin foil and I put some on there. I didn't know how much to do. Like I was scared of it. I was really scared of it because of so many people that I had seen die from it. So I was terrified of it. Like whenever I tried it, I don't know why I ever tried it, but it's just curiosity, I guess. And I remember that I remember just barely just a little hit like that, and I passed out, and I got hooked on it from one hit, for real, just one hit. So then I was on fentanyl and dope at the same time. So like where everybody else would hit the fentanyl and pass out, I would hit the fentanyl and then hit the dope and then be awake, but like down at the same time, almost like speedballing is what you call it. But I remember whenever they both ended up going to rehab, and not long after that, my parents were they started working out of state in Georgia. They were doing like the cleanup stuff, you know. And with my two best friends being gone, and my parents being gone, I still had family around, but it was like nobody that I was just like everyday see, you know, like not really close, but not like, you know, I wouldn't call them with me being like down like I was, you know. So I felt like for a long time, I felt like I was just on my own. And I got really, really bad whenever my parents went to Georgia. And I remember I was dying every other day for real. Like, not really. I only overdosed once, which I mean, I know I say only, that's a lot. Not really compared to all the ones that I've seen. But I remember I just got really, really, really bad. And I decided that I should try to go to rehab. So I remember trying to go to rehab. That's whenever I told you earlier that my friend went to rehab for about 6 months. Well, whenever she got out of rehab, that's whenever on that back porch that day, she talked me into I needed help. Like I knew I needed help that day. So then I ended up signing myself into a rehab in Florence. And well, it's not really a rehab. It's like a halfway house. Like this sober living. They teach you how to live sober without it. But it's also like they give you room to hang yourself. Like if you want to mess up, you're going to mess up. And if you want to get sober, you're going to get sober. Like there's no in between. But I remember I only lasted like 2 weeks there. But those 2 weeks, thank God, I got sober from fentanyl. Didn't want it again. But after I left that day, I remember the day that I left, my cousin, I told her, because she lived in Florence, I called her and I was like, if you don't come get me, one of my crackhead friends is fixing to come get me. I don't want to be here. And she was like, okay, don't leave nobody. I'm on my way. I was like, okay. So I remember she pulled up and she got me and like, she was talking to me the whole way back to her house. And she was like, please don't leave. Please just stay at my house and please don't leave. And I remember in the back of my head, I knew I had somebody on the way to get me from her house, but I just wanted to tell her what she wanted to hear so she didn't call my family, you know. So I was like, yeah, I'll stay. I'll stay, whatever. And then I ended up, she went inside for a minute and then the homeboy pulled up and I left. I immediately left. I mean, she called my parents and stuff as soon as I left, but I was already out of there at that time, you know. And I did dope that night as soon as, like, right whenever I left. As soon as I left, I got it. Like, he brought some in the car. And I relapsed on that. Whenever I relapsed that time, I went down, you know, really, really hard that time. I got mixed in with the wrong people because after that, the other friend was still in rehab, and then the one that left rehab was in jail now. Like, she had to spend a little time in jail for leaving. And then, so I felt like I was on my own again because my parents were still gone, right? So then I started hanging out with some people that, like, when I say people that I shouldn't have been hanging out with, like my dad went to school with these people, you know what I'm saying? And I got introduced to the needle. Right? using dope that way. And I remember this lady, she was like, if you want to try this, with smoking it or snorting it, you only get like 50% of what it is. And like if you shoot it, you can get like 100%. I was like, roll tide, like let's do that, It sounded so good to me at that time. And one shot, and it was over with from there. That's the only way I would do it. I got really, really bad after that. And I got mixed in with the wrong people, way wrong people. I remember being in it for a little while and with those people, and my house got robbed from the people that I was hanging out with. I remember I walked in this house and all my stuff was in the basement, and I was like, hey, did you just rob my house? And they was like, no. And I was like, well, this is all my stuff, And I was done. I was still on drugs, so I would say I was done. But I kept hanging out with these people. I don't know why, but I did. I guess because they had the drugs at the time, And I remember those people. Not long after that, I was with some of them, and then my parents came home. I remember my parents coming home, and once they got home, they wasn't home very long. And I remember my mom calling me one day, and she was like, "Hey, I really need you to come over. We need to talk to you." And I put it off for a few days because I was just like, "Oh, they just want me to get sober. They just want me to come home, whatever." Well, whenever I finally went over there, we were sitting there and talking in the living room, and they told me that somebody was going to come talk to me. I was like, oh my God, I had somebody on the way because I thought they was going to take me away, you know what I'm saying? And I was just scared, I guess. I didn't want to get sober, and I thought that's what they were going to make me do. Well, then we were sitting there at the house, and I remember this guy came up in like a cop uniform, and he was a PI. It was a PI that came to my parents, and I remember he told my parents went outside, and it was just me and him sitting in the living room, and he was talking to me, and he was like, I really need you to stay at home with your parents, and I'm not telling you this to scare you or to try to get you home or try to get you sober. I'm telling you this because there's money put over your head. And I was like, what? Like, it shocked me really bad. But he said that there was money put on my head for like somebody around here, whoever could get me to Russellville gets, I think it was $10,000 just to get me to Russellville.
Wow.
And then whoever they were supposed to bring me to in Russellville got $50,000 to bring me to the state line because my name was at the top of the national sex trading list.
Mm.
And yeah, it scared me really bad. But I was still stupid, so I didn't stay at home. I was just really paranoid all the time, because I knew I couldn't stay at home and do the drugs and get high like I wanted to. But I also knew that I was terrified that was going to happen, So I paid attention to everything. And I remember one night, not long after that, I was at a buddy's house in South. I say a buddy,
Acquaintance.
yeah, in South Haleville, and I remember we were sitting there, and then these two people that I didn't know came in, and they were like, why don't you go with us? Like, we got no, we got such and such. Why don't you go with us? And at that time, I had just got high, literally just got high. So my brain was like, oh God, what do I do? But also, God never left me whenever I was in my addiction. So my discernment would kick in sometimes, and I'm whenever I said something wasn't right, that one day, I remember I was sitting there and I was like,
that's what I'm saying, spiritual radars, but discernment's a good word.
Yeah. I remember I was like, oh Lord, this is not what you should do. But my flesh was like, yeah, let's do it. So I fought with myself for 30 minutes. And I remember telling the people that I was there with, the guy's house that I was at, I was like, should I go with him or should I just stay here? What should I do? And he was like, you're grown. Do whichever one you want to. And I needed somebody to tell me which one to do at that time. I felt like. So anyways, for some reason, I ended up going with these people. Well, I remember I had a blue bandana on. And I remember the guy, they made me sit in the front seat. They got me to sit in the front seat, and Homeboy was sitting behind me, and Homegirl was driving. And I remember Homeboy started, quoting gang stuff to me, because I was wearing that blue bandana. But, it made him mad, I guess, because, I didn't flinch. I've been around, I know a lot of things that a lot of people probably think I shouldn't know, and I probably shouldn't have been involved reword that. Shouldn't have been involved in, but like I knew a lot of things that people didn't think I would, you know. So like with him quoting stuff at me, I was just like, what? Like, what do you want? Or do you want me to be scared right now? Because I'm not, you know. And I remember it made him mad, and we pulled up at this lady's house that I knew in East Franklin. And I remember whenever we got there, I was terrified because I knew that lady was in jail, and nobody was supposed to be at her house. But like the girl that was driving, she parked the car around back, and I remember she walked in the back door, and whenever she walked in the back door, homeboy was steadily in the back, just like talking to me, saying weird stuff, like being weird. And then he ended up getting out, and they were both inside for a second, and I was like, okay, there's nowhere to run, like, because I was thinking to myself, like, I gotta go, like something's fixing to happen to me, I gotta go. And there was nowhere to go because like it's open fields, you know what I'm saying? So like there was nowhere for me to go around there. And then by the time I decided, okay, well I can do this, I just opened my door and then homegirl walks out. And so she comes to the van, she sits down, and she was just looking straight, like staring, like holding the steering wheel, just looking straight. And I told her, I looked at her, because I knew that girl. I knew her from like previous, you know.
Right.
I didn't know her. I've just seen her a few times, like at the dope houses, you know. And I remember I was like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong right now? And she was like, don't ask questions. Please just don't ask questions. And I was like, well, that raises more questions. What do you mean, don't ask questions? And then I started remembering, like, oh my God, what if this is happening, like what my parents had told me about, what that PI came to my parents' house and told me about. And I was like, I better get going, you know? And then I remember homeboy walked back out, and he was like, he left the back door open. And I remember this was so weird to me. I don't know what happened in that house because I didn't go in there. But I remember he walked out and he was like, go close that door. I said, no. He said, get out and go close that door. I was like, no. I feel like you want my fingerprints on that door. I'm not putting my fingerprints on that door, you know? So me and that man argued for a minute, and then homegirl ended up getting out and going to close the door. So I don't know what they did at that house, but freaked me out. Anyways, so she gets in the vehicle, and then we leave again. And whenever we're leaving, and like keep in mind, like my phone's turned off. Like I can't use it unless I'm calling 911. That's it, because my service was cut off. I couldn't use it unless I had Wi-Fi or stuff like that. But sorry, excuse me. But I remember we pulled up at this house. I had no idea where I was. I just knew I was in the Spruce Pine East area. Never seen this house before in my life. But we pulled up to some trailer, and I remember the guy got out of the back seat and went inside. And whenever he went inside, I was like, I looked at the driver, that girl, and I was like, please tell me what's going on. Like, you're not okay right now. I'm obviously not okay. Something's going on. Like, what's wrong? Like, what is going on? And she was like, please just don't ask questions. It's easier if you don't ask questions. And then she got out. Well, as she got out, a little girl, she said she was like 30, but she looked like she was no more than 18. Mm-hmm. She walks out of the house and she just sits on like a little log thing right beside the car. And that girl gets out, goes inside, and well, that girl's sitting right there. And then I was like, don't worry about your problems. Something's wrong with this little girl, you know? So I was like, hey, are you okay? And she just looked at me and she was like, I was like, no, really, like, are you okay? And she was like, just don't say anything. And I was like, I had my running shoes on, let me tell you. People used to say that I had my shoes laced up all the time. It would be a little joke or whatever. But I remember I would always wear Nike high tops because I'd be like, all the time I'd like run from the police and like stupid stuff. I do stupid stuff. But I remember I had my shoes on and I was like, okay, I'm fixing to take off. So I went up to the other side of the van and I picked that little girl a flower and I was like, you look like you're having a bad day. And I gave her a flower and she was like, thank you. And I said, I'm going to go pet this dog over here. So there's a dog on the leash on the other side. Well, as soon as I went around the van, I just took off running. I ran for a long time. I remember I ran for a long, long time. And ended up going to jail that day. They arrested me for a PI, told me I was intoxicated. I was like, y'all didn't do no type of nothing on me. Like, how are y'all going to get me with it? They got me with it, though. I'm stuck with that PI. But I remember that, like, that was their first attempt to, like, take me, you know. That was a long story for that, but that's how it went.
Could be a blessing in itself.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad God blessed me with fast running legs. But yeah, that was my first time to go to jail, and after that, I was in and out of jail for a while, like just in and out. I went to jail like 5 different times in 6 months, just in and out, racked up on a whole bunch of charges. And then I remember like the second time I got out of jail, I went to one of my buddies, so-called buddies' house, and Bill Campbell is where it was. And I remember like we stayed up all night, and like that house is like a revolving door. Like there's people there all the time. I mean, it was a dope house, so like people were there all the time. But I remember this guy. I didn't even remember what he looked like the next day. I'll get to that in a second. But like I remember, we had been up all night, and then it was like 5:36 in the morning. And I remember he said, "Hey, you want to go get everybody breakfast at Jack's? Like we can take my motorcycle." And all I heard was free food motorcycle, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Didn't even know the guy, but so I got on the back of the bike with him, and we didn't even make it 2 miles up the road before we wrecked. And I remember I slid, like God was with me that day. I think, to be honest, I feel like God made us wreck that day. Because, like, homeboy told me that we were going to Haleville to get breakfast or whatever. And then whenever my dad looked it up on the maps, like the direction that we were going, we were headed towards Russell. So, like, I'm convinced that was the second attempt, But I feel like God stopped it, and like God made us wreck for that, And but I ended up, I broke a few ribs, broke my shoulder, got a bunch of road rash and stuff. But I remember that I feel like God was with me that day because like I slid 162 feet and didn't even know it. Like I remember I was sitting on the back of the bike trying to change the song, and all I heard was and looked up and we had wrecked. But that was their second attempt to take me away, And I feel like I had this ring. One of my best friends passed away when I was like 19, and I had one of my old friends got me a ring that was like 2 hands wrapped around my arm or my finger, and it was called a hug from heaven. Well, that day that I wrecked, whenever I got to the hospital, because I remember everything was like I felt like I was underwater, like it was just really surreal, and I remember I was like, I'm not getting in that ambulance without my ring. Like, so they had to search around and find my ring. They found it. And after I was in the hospital, I asked them where my ring was. And whenever they brought it to me, like, it was like this, But then whenever they brought it to me, it was straight up like this. Both hands were just straight up in the air. Wow. And I told my mom and dad, I was like, I feel like that was God telling me, like, this is my last straw, and He's taking His hands off me. Because after so long, He's going to take His hand. He's going to step back.
The word says, "My spirit will always strive with man."
Yeah, I don't know. It was just crazy when I looked up and seen that ring, and I remember I was like, man, I really need to do better now. Like, I got to do better after this. Like, ain't no way I can still do it. Then again, I went back out into the world after I healed up from that, and then after I went back out into the world again, I don't know where to go from here. Yeah. I stopped hanging out with all those people that I was hanging out with, and I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, which he's my husband now. But I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, and we were both we were on fentanyl together, like way before. But then he had got sober around the same time I did from fentanyl, and we started. We just did a lot of dope together whenever I moved in with him. Which I mean, I say just like it was just a little. It was a lot. Like we did a lot of stuff, but we did a lot of dumb things. But I remember he would always. I remember whenever I first decided. I probably shouldn't do this no more. I remember he walked in because I said I was on the needle. I remember he walked in one day because he would never do it like that. He never did it like that. But I remember he walked in one day and like I would sit there for hours and hours and hours trying to hit myself sometimes. Because once you do that first stick, if you can't get yourself, I don't know if you ever did it, but you cannot. It's like your body will not let you stop until you do it. And I remember I'd sit there. The longest I ever sat there and tried to stick myself was like 8 hours. And just consecutively. Didn't get up from that spot. And I remember he walked in one day and I had it stuck in my stomach right here. And I remember whenever he walked in, the look on his face of like disappointment and like disgust, I felt like it made me like, oh man, I really am really bad. Like I gotta do better. And not long after that is whenever God met me at the dope house, back to whenever I said my dad came and got me, And But whenever God met me in that dope house that day, I remember the next day, my honey came to church that night. Which he didn't even believe in God whenever we got together, but he did. I mean, he's a believer now. He's yeah, but he I remember he came in and like I was. Whenever God got a hold of me, I'm telling you, he got a hold of me. I couldn't even speak English for 24 hours.
That's right.
I'm telling you, God got a hold of me, and I could not even literally speak anything but tongues, like at all, for like 24 hours. And I remember I was standing or trying to stand up. Everybody was holding me up. I was bouncing back and forth in the Holy Spirit, you know. And he walked in the church, and I remember he always does this when he's nervous. He curls his hair, and he was looking at me, and he was like, and I was like, hey, back out, you know.
Yep.
And we prayed for a little while, and after that, we both moved in with my parents, and he got saved eventually. And a couple weeks later, he got saved, gave his life to the Lord, and we've been living with my parents ever since. And we got married, trying to start our life, you know, whatever. But now, and we're pregnant now. We got a little girl on the way. If you can't tell. That's all I got for real. Life is good. God is good, and He will meet you in the midst of where you're at.
That's right. You know, I don't know. I just have such a burden for addiction, for people struggling. You know, I understand. I shot dope for over 25 years, so I get it. I get it. Thank God I don't have any track marks.
I know. I prayed.
God has preserved my body. Don't understand it, and I prayed. I asked him, God, I thought, why did you preserve me? No, but not that it won't preserve. I'm saying, I question why. He said, I'll give grace to who I want to give grace to, and I'll give mercy to who I want to give mercy to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's again, I just have a burden for the people out there. If you feel you're trapped, because that's the way we feel.
Mm-hmm. It's an easy.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to feel that way, but
it's a lie. It's a lie. It's the devil.
God will meet you anywhere you want to be. You just have to let Him.
That's right. That's right. You can ask God to come into your life right where you're at. You don't have to be at a church. You don't have to be wherever you are. You can ask God to come into your life, forgive you of your sins, and you will be saved.
I agree. I can testify for that because I was at the dope house in the front seat of a pickup truck when I got saved.
That's right. There is no greater feeling knowing that you're saved. Because it can happen like that.
So, I agree with that.
You know, I heard somebody say this the other day, and we'll close, that the atheist says, if us Christians are wrong, which we're not, but if us Christians are wrong, what have we lost? But if the people, the non-believers, the atheists are wrong, they've lost everything. You know, and again, you know, we love you. If get in contact with us. If you have any questions, you want prayer, help, or anything, just come to Pathway.
Be a good time.